Greetings, humanity! Welcome to the CypherCast. At last! We are here. I am Jim Ryan, and with me tonight is the magnificent Danny Neary.
Hey all!
And the astonishing Andrew Cady.
Hello.
How have you folks been doing? It feels like it's been 9,000 years.
Oh, see, I pointed the wrong way. I forgot my camera was mirrored. I was trying to point to Danny, and I pointed that way because on my screen she's that way.
Directions, what are they? I don't know. How have we been doing? What have we been up to? Have we been doing any gaming? Has anything been happening in life anywhere in the world?
Oh, boy. Lots of things are happening. Let's see. I ran a session on your channel since we gamed last.
This is true.
Yes.
That did happen. That happened last month, I think. I can't remember which month it was. It was February, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah. We ran a Numenera one-shot, so that was a lot of fun. My little cave of time, caverns of time. So it was good.
It was a very cool session. And we got some excellent banter in it, and there's a delightful clip about never having too much rope. Is on there. It's slightly morbid, but if anyone wants to check that out, that's there. It's still there as a highlight on the channel. Is it on highlight yet? I haven't highlighted it yet. It's still there on the channel though. It's on the back thing.
To me, the highlight was sticking the handle on the dog and like trying to carry the dog around as a pet to ride and stuff like that. It's like, all right, that's a good use of a Cypher.
It was an interesting situation. It was very interesting. Awesome. Danny, have you been doing anything had a chance to do any sort of gamery or anything like that?
Well, so in real life, I think this will be, I'm going to tell you guys my first official announcement ever. I'm getting a divorce. So that's why I've been MIA and nobody has heard that publicly yet. But you guys are my family, so I'm telling you that. So my gaming has been cut a little bit short, but I'm still playing some Greyhawk 5e, and I will be all good to go for Gen Con, running some MCG all over the place. So
excellent.
I'm going.
Yes, cool. Now that also that Greyhawk game is excellent. Is it over on the Greyhawk channel? I try to tune in when I can, and there's a lot of drama, very high drama.
It is high drama. There are times where Shane's like, all right, he's the GM, we're going to get out of this one spot this episode. And he names it such, like they leave the library. We didn't even get out of the room. Like, really, guys? I'm like, hey, it's role play, man.
There was many library sessions in that game. Many library sessions indeed. Oh, awesome. As for me, I've been doing games here on this channel a lot, on my Twitch channel, so there's so much of it, and so I won't bore folks with the too many of the specifics, since some of them maybe at least like half of them probably have already seen it. Or know where it is, but I am excited about the Dungeon World game that I'm running. I've started doing short campaigns, so every month I do a new short campaign. This is me trying to build up to eventually do a longer campaign, and so I'm trying to see if I can see how to do it. Teach myself how to stream as a GM on over multiple sessions, and then sort of hop to the next thing. I think I'm going to keep doing these monthly things though, because they are a lot of fun. We did Dirty Secrets last month, which was it's a modern noir thing, and no one knew who the murderer was until the end. That's how the game works. You find out who it is essentially at random amongst all your suspects. So it sort of has a clue aspect to it, but with role playing throughout. So that's a lot of fun.
I do have to ask, because I was out of the country for a week. Did you finish Torment?
I have not finished Torment yet. No. I take these games kind of slow, and something that probably some folks get annoyed by watching is that I'm one of those players. I have to see all the side things and figure out what all the things are and all the things mean. So I'm still in there. I'm getting close, though. I'm getting pretty close.
It's a hard game to stream just because it's a lot of reading. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you read it out loud?
I do read it out loud.
Wow.
I do. I read it out loud, and when I have the energy, I try to do voices. But it's one of those things where I just kind of... the problem with that, though, I have discovered more recently, is sometimes it's been weeks since I talked to a particular NPC and I forget how I made them sound. So they sound completely differently when I get back to them. But I decided to stop caring about that and just keep going. It's a lot of fun. We're gonna get to a play. I'm actually it's making me want to run a short Numenera campaign in the Sagas Cliffs area. In that part of the world, and there is a source book. I have it.
Yeah.
So that might happen. One never knows. That said, though, before we dive into our main topic today, there are a few things that have been going on recently in the world of Monte Cook games that I thought perhaps we should talk about, as these are rather, what is the expression, the 800-pound gorilla in the room type things are going on right now.
There's a couple big ones, yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. We have, let me look up here. So Invisible Sun has been released as a PDF.
Yes. Can be found on Monte Cook Game Store and Drive-Thru RPG.
This was amazing to me that they did it, and because I knew that they were very much about the whole physical product and how they wanted it to be presented, and I can respect that. I know, I enjoy playing round a table whenever it's possible, but I am really pleased that they've actually put these out, because that is going to make it a lot easier for folks who want to game online, which is I've been doing almost exclusively lately, and for folks to just sort of read the things. What do you folks think?
I think it's great to be able to have at least the key or what have you to read on a physical form, just to have the basic rules around. And hey, for online, it's got a lot of art in it that you can sort of all right, here's a good show for your online game that you don't have to go, look around for and what have you. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So there might actually be a chance. We might get to play Invisible Sun sometime soon.
Oh, it's been a while since we've all played together.
This is true. I don't think we've all played together in any one single game, actually. I think I've played with Danny individually. I've played with Andrew individually now.
I think we were in a playtest together.
Yeah, a little playtest.
Mr. Brown ran. You were there.
Was I there?
Yes, you were.
I can't remember. Oh, good Lord. That was
I remember the
Oh
character you
shit!
played.
We better refresh your memory.
I was in a playtest that he ran at our home game. I didn't think I did it online. Maybe I did. Maybe I just forgot. Because was it all audio?
Pretty much, yes. It was all audio at the time.
All right. Well, it appears that part of my memory has been wiped, but this happens.
It was intentional. Your character was horribly annoying.
Okay, well that's probably for the best then.
I'm kidding.
No, most of my characters have problems, and this is a known thing. So that's cool. I think it's going to be really interesting to finally just get that spread further, because I believe in spreading the gospel of Invisible Sun. It is.
Oh gosh, we're completely wrong. We're completely wrong.
It wasn't. I was thinking that after I said it out loud. I'm like, I don't remember him playing a character.
It was Scott Robinson and not you.
We could have made him think he was crazy, Andrew.
I had to pull up the OneNote file. I'm like, all right, let's see.
See, the thing is, and this is something that folks, not everyone may realize about Jim, you can tell him he did virtually anything, and he'll kind of blindly accept it, because there are many holes in his memory. Especially if you tell him he was in Atlanta at the time. It'll be like, okay, yeah, I must have done that. because I have no memory evidence to the contrary. So there's
You must have done a lot of wild, crazy things in Atlanta that we don't know.
there's a gap. There's a gap. There's a gap that then a thing happened past which memories are difficult, and then these things happen.
Electroshock therapy does that sometimes.
Yeah. That sometimes you got to go for it. It's because they told me, we don't want to summon that again. Some things are best left buried. But that said, something that is going to be uncovered, hopefully, will be the Arcana of the Ancients.
Yes, the Arcana of the Ancients already, at like 90,000 on Kickstarter right now.
Damn.
This is another thing I was kind of amazed to see. Just the idea that that they're bringing a lot of science fantasy technology, that kind of thing, to D&D. Monte Cook Games is putting this out. They're doing this Kickstarter. It's running through April 12th, and I think this is a good idea.
Yeah, they're bringing the style and feel of Numenera to a 5e setting with creating their own sort of a bunch of different things to it, and making rules and what have you that will work for your 5e games. So
this is so awesome because, and I love gamers of all type, but I definitely know some people that can't get by Dungeons and Dragons. It's their baby. And I'm like, you're missing out on such an incredible world and system. I feel like this is my way to get them into the ninth world. I'm going to use this rule set and bring Numenera to 5e, and I'm going to sneak them into actual Numenera game at some point. But this is my bridge.
It could be a definite gateway drug. I think also something that you can tie this into a number of things. There's there is a company, I can't remember which one it is, but they've been releasing, they've been redoing classic modules for 5e.
Yeah.
I want to say Frog God, but it might be a different one. It might not be Frog God. It might be someone else.
Was Goodman Games doing it?
Could be Goodman.
Yeah,
Games.
Goodman was doing a bunch of them.
And that's the thing is they're doing Barrier Peaks soon, and as something that I've actually played in sort of a thing where bits of Barrier Peaks was reskinned for Numenera. That our friend David Brown ran, and so I think it's interesting because now that Arcana of the Ancients is coming out, if folks get the 5e update to the Barrier Peaks and they want to kind of combine those, they could do that.
Yeah, that is Goodman Games that's doing the expedition to Barrier Peaks, the Isle of Dread, and into the Borderlands.
Yeah.
So
So anything where you want to do like ancient tech. I think this is going to be a major boost for folks who do that in their campaigns.
And if they raise $10,000 more, they will come out with a bestiary with 100 new monsters for 5e. And who doesn't want 100 new monsters for 5e?
Everyone.
Technology monsters, and that sounds awesome.
I really would like to. There are a lot of creatures in Numenera that I think would be very cool to kind of throw at a D&D party.
Well, that's the problem with all the D&D, is like, all right, you know what a hill giant is, you know what it looks like, you know what it does, oh, look at your gelatinous cube, okay, you've seen what a diamond does, and oh, look, it's a beholder. So, like, bringing in something wild, weird, than Monte Cook style monsters into a game with players that are just used to D&D would be mind-blowing, I think, because you can go the weird, the wicked, and you don't have to house rule them because you'll have all these rules here for everything. So
I just kind of have this thing in the back of my head that I just sort of want to do something someday where, like, it was a little short D&D thing where folks have entered a nightmare realm, maybe Ravenloft, maybe not, and they run into basically the Hex and have to deal with everything that does. So it would be from original Numenera. So it would be very cool to see kind of how things like that go. But I have gone off the tab. I will go back to the tab. There it
Uh-oh.
is. We got a few things that are coming out, or maybe out by the time you hear this if you're listening to the podcast.
Mhm.
And so on the Invisible Sun side, Book M and Teratology are coming out. Book M in March, Teratology in April. And then on the Numenera side of things, book I'm actually kind of excited about, Priests of the Eons, which releases to everyone late March. And that is one source book that I have been thinking for a very long time that is one that needs to exist because
for the Priest Aeons to be such an important group in Numenera, such an important faction, and sort of like you're with them or against them kind of, you know, like you either believe them or having them would be as their own book is a very good idea, I think.
Definitely.
So I think it's the book I've been waiting for as well. So I think, you know, I can't wait to figure out all the secrets behind them and what have you, and how to have your players more incorporated into the Order of Truth. So.
Yeah, they only give you so much about the Aeon Priests to start out with. So, the more they can flesh out about them, I think the better, because that's even how if I'm remembering right, and that's how I think a lot of us got introduced even to Numenera was through that first short story.
Yeah.
With the character that founds that becomes the Amber Pope, right? That becomes the first Amber Pope.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the Amber Monolith.
Yeah. So it's very cool, and I definitely cannot wait to look through it. But that said, also there are a few other things that I put on the list that of things that are actually not quite so recent, but are going to be relevant to our topic, and we'll perhaps be talking about them later. But just in short, there are, since they started putting Invisible Sun out digitally, they're now also selling some of the props individually, like the Testament of Sun and the Suns and the Wicked Keys. Those very recently came out. I'm sure there are plenty of others that you'll start being able to get piecemeal. So I think that's going to come handy.
I don't know.
And then, of course, they've also, not too long ago, they came out with things for, a Shin set. That's physical props for the Cypher system, or for Numenera specifically. If you're dealing with Shin, you want to use them as counters or what have you. They added the Ruin deck not too long ago to their long list of different kinds of decks of cards that they have for you, that I think has uses well beyond just Numenera if you're trying to come up with any sort of interesting Ruin. So I think it's going to be good that we have these resources, because we're about to kind of dive into a discussion of such things.
Yes, we are. In fact, I just realized as you're talking about that, we never announced the topic at the top of the show.
That's fair. But these things come sometimes as a surprise. They sometimes arrive suddenly.
They grow organically.
Yes, precisely. As though
they weren't planned at all.
As though they weren't planned at all.
Don't give that. We're not flying by the seat of our pants. We got a rundown over here.
I mean, I did write the I did submit the topic like a couple of months ago, but it's one of those things where have we had time to do much beyond that? Well, not really. But
life gets in the way sometimes.
We're going to talk about it, though. I think that's it's a decent topic. So let me first just start by asking, and this can be Cypher specific or not, but do you like to use props or other physical player aids at the table? And if so,
let me tell you this. I never actually use like props that much at a table that are like physical things. Mm-hmm. However, I went over to a friend's house who had Tullus. And Tullus comes with this thing that's like, all right, here's a wanted poster, here's a menu, and to me that was so interesting of a like, bring your players into the thing. Like, here's the menu for the restaurant you're at. And, it made it feel more real. And I was like, wow. Now, like, that's what got me really excited about, Invisible Sun, because we've got all these prop sets with that and stuff like that. It's like, all right, I want to play a game now with this much immersion factor into it. I think that, if you have the time to make your own props, and do that, I think it could be, I'm excited about that concept, and I'm excited to start trying to run a game where I can bring something to the table like that. So the game I've been running for the last 6 months, actually year and a half now, has been Star Trek Adventures, and I can't really bring props to the table with that other than maybe sound effects.
Sure. Well, I mean, sound effects count, and I did say physical, but it can actually be anything, even if you're using digital assets, anything like that. Danny, what about you?
I love props. They are better than Christmas, like morning, when you get one as a player. And so that's how it all started for me. DM Ricky P, who was one of my all-time favorite GMs ever. I got a package in the mail addressed to Azura Thrall, care of Danny Neary, and that was my neutral evil war mage, and it was a journal of a character we just ran into. Like, he got a journal and he wrote pages in it, and yes, the person went insane. His writing, you could tell it was going, and then at the end of it there were blood stains and things like written in like red ink. And I know exactly where that is in my house. And Ricky P would pull out the props nonstop. Like, when I got a deck of many things, he handed me a deck. That was amazing. He inspired me 100% completely, always pulling out something. Like, he got me as a GM going to flea markets, like looking for crazy bottles that I could put like a note in, or I would get notes from characters and burn the edges of them, and I'd like try and write them in ash as a GM because I know how much joy it brought me. And then I went to trying to do like card tricks. I was running a game in Ravenloft, and so I was one of the I was getting my accent out, and I was doing Kuroka deck. I can't think of the name right now. I'm drawing a blank.
I think it's
I did a card trick. Thank you. And I failed as a GM. My trick totally did not work, but it was hysterical. So I am all about the props as a player. They make me so happy in so many things. And as a GM, I strive to, pull out a surprise every now and then.
God, I'm jealous. That sounds awesome. I've never had a GM that does. I was the GM that I never went to that length. Now I feel like, man, I'm a failure here.
No. I think this is when we could play D&D from 4 p.m. till 3 a.m. in the morning when none of us, had.
Oh yeah, that was my entire high school weekends.
Right.
Yeah.
But he still pulled it out, man. I have all the notes. I could go upstairs and they're all in a drawer. It's like, it's like love letters, but they're, gaming letters.
That is so cool. Just the idea of doing that, where you have someone who will bring you these letters. They'll burn the edges of them or soak them to make them look old and ratted. The Ravenloft game that I'm playing in right now. Our GM is doing that. So she does that, and she dresses up as like one of the Vistani, and of course also they also have a 3D printer there at their house, so they can make all manner of things.
Yeah,
mostly it's miniatures for that one. I want to say that my interest in props with RPGs started way back in the last century. When I did, let's see, I think initially it sort of was, there were live action games that were happening hand in hand with other tabletop games I was discovering. I want to say that at the table, I kind of started getting into it more with Deadlands, because in the original Deadlands, you had poker chips, and decks of cards as part of the mechanics, and it was very flavorful because it's the Wild West, and that whole idea that if you are if you're there are fate chips. That's where the term fate chips comes from, by the way. And just sort of got adopted when people running Fate began using poker chips to represent fate points. The the thing where you could just sort of spend them to determine how to do better on a roll, that kind of thing. It's just determining different colored chips meant different things. There was a special rule that someone came up with, an optional rule that you could throw in a black chip that they called it, or just some other, it's just some chip of some other color than the three that were mainly in there too. That if the posse drew it, then there was something terribly wrong was going to happen to them.
Yeah, you drew them from a bag, right? Like you couldn't see what color you were drawing as you're drawing them out. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
But is that a prop or is that like a game mechanic mainly?
Well, it was both. That's the thing, is that, and I like when you can do that, just sort of have these sort of marry game aids to physical props.
Didn't you do something like that at Gen Con when you ran a game? We were picking stuff out of bags, and we didn't know what it was.
I have not run a game at Gen Con before.
Oh, shit. My memory is really fried.
I might have been someone else at the time. Perhaps I was Scott.
Well,
I should say I have done something like that at cons before, but I won't I won't hog the spotlight right now per se. But the other thing I was going to say is I got more into props when I started LARPing, which it's kind of a mandatory thing pretty much. But yeah, I'd been reading a little bit of the rules for Cthulhu Live, and then I got into the various World of Darkness LARPing. It was Mind's Eye Theater, which opened, I did more props toward the beginning. It was like I would carry a cane, and there was costuming and all manner of stuff. And I would create a bunch of player aids for the LARPs that we ran when we were starting up. Various, like we would use, I think, different sort of little glass beads sometimes to represent how many blood points you had. Or we would sometimes use pieces of slips of paper depending on what we had. And we had this one thing where it's like we had everyone was drinking out of this. Their vampire characters were drinking out of this blood that had been provided. We were giving them these slips of paper that represented blood points. And then at one point in the evening we said, okay, turn over your slips of paper, and if it has an X on it, then you're falling prey to the spell that is now being cast that turns the blood back into holy water.
Ew.
And yes, terrible things happened to them. But they're all. It was a cool thing. But we did all kinds of things like that for quite a while in there. But that's kind of how I started getting into the idea of using those kinds of things.
You had mentioned dressing up.
Yes.
I think it is so cool to dress up and use like people as props, and I mean that in the most respectful manner, as in having like a guest person come in and surprise your table. And I've been lucky enough to get to do that, to come in as a Sith, and I like started the Alexa like music going with Snoke's music, and they didn't know I was in the house. And I come in like in full Sith garb and the lightsaber, and I played a character. I played like one of their wicked villains.
Yay!
So if you could consider like a person a prop, it's like, you know what I mean? It's
definitely a player aid.
Yeah.
No, totally. Andrew, have you ever seen anyone doing that or done that or?
I mean, I've seen, like guests come in for. I've done that a bit before, where I'm like, all right, I have this NPC character who is gonna, like, their plot line is they're gonna betray the party, and so then when that happens, I have a PC, like a player, like, oh, we have this extra player today. You're gonna play this NPC character, but they know all along what's gonna happen, and so it's like this big reveal of that kind of thing. Yeah. So I've done that a couple times before. But I run a lot of science fiction games, and with science fiction, the easiest thing for me to do, and I do this a lot for everything from Star Wars to Star Trek is do audio logs or do messages that they receive. So I'll record something ahead of time and, use Audacity and all these other things to sort of change it and add things. Like, with Star Trek, like I've recorded a couple, not SOS is what I'm thinking, like we're in trouble messages, distress signals. That's what I'm like for. But what I do is like I'll put all of this distortion into it, and I'll create 5 different copies of it depending on what they roll. And so, if they rolled really good to clear up the distortion, then they get this version. If they rolled badly, they get this version.
Wow.
And so less information that they'll have based on, what they rolled. So they can try to piece together what the message was really about. So
Andrew, that's brilliant.
So
that is really neat.
That is awesome.
I will say with audio stuff, I haven't actually used a lot. Well, okay, music is a different topic. I think we'll get to that in a bit.
Music's a different topic, yeah.
Yeah, but there is one thing. I did help out someone, a friend of mine, once, who needed a recording for it. It was kind of a semi-live action thing that he was doing. It was a sort of a D&D Cthulhu crossover type thing.
Mm-hmm.
That he was running at a convention, and he had an actor dress up in the Cthulhu suit, just with the squid mask and everything, and he had me record a Cthulhu, basically making and it wasn't the According to Hoyle Cthulhu, but he was doing a villainous monologue. Where he just sort of did this thing, "Fools, you have awakened us from our millennial slumber," that kind of thing. And because I was doing some voice work at the time, and I was like, sure, yeah, I'll do that real quick. I think I did it as it was like I can't remember what it was anymore. It's all gone. Well, I did it first. He asked me to record it, and then later he won a contest I was running on a podcast that I used to produce a long time ago called The Great Debate, where I offered to, where I did a bunch of characters, and I offered to record a voice message to the winner of a contest for their phone as one of my characters, and he won. And so we were trying to decide what character he wanted, and eventually we were like, well, why don't you just do the Cthulhu voice again? I'm like, okay, fine. You have awoken Richard from his millennial slumber. So it was delightful. So it is neat whenever I see folks doing that, and then it's like, and here's a recording, and they play the recording.
Yeah. It's always fun to do that, because it's like, all right, you give your players something to piece over and figure out on their own, or something like that. Or, all right, listen to, here's plot pre-recorded, rather than me reading the flavor text.
And sort of in the vein of giving folks stuff to kind of play with and look over, how about maps? Have you folks done use like prop maps or seen prop maps used before?
I tried to make a burned like parchment map in high school. I remember doing that, like baked it in the oven and what have you, but it turned out like this whole waxy kind of thing that like just started breaking apart. I was like, all right.
Oh no.
So, but I mean, I use, published maps or something like that. Like I'm running Tomb of Annihilation, for our home table here, and they've got a lot of maps. And so what I ended up doing was like buying gaming paper and drawing out the map on gaming paper. And so where I could sort of, all right, I can take pieces out of it and sort of like, all right, here's the exterior, and then I'll cut it. I'll have another piece that's the interior that I'll put on top of it in this room or that room, so you don't have to reveal the whole map or cover it up or something like that. So gaming paper is really good for that, because you can sort of just cut it around, what have you. I've done that for like a Gamma World game, the new Gamma World, the one that Bruce Cordell worked on, where right around before 4E, I did a like gaming paper where they were on a train, and I had to be able to move the train around because the hexes were part of the, on a battle map. And I thought that was really cool to be able to do that. So, having maps that move are really, really cool ideas. Mm-hmm. I've done things where I had the characters were climbing down something, and like a rope basically, and I had this whole like coat hanger contraption sitting on the table with all the ropes, and I had knots tied for each little 5-foot section of it. So I attached the player character's to the rope with paper clips on their minis, so they knew where they were as they were getting attacked. Because I always like to have combat in in crazy situations where they're on a cliffside, or climbing down a rope or something like that. So it's like, it just adds a little bit of dynamic to it. So I had this big contraption set up on the table, made out of coat hangers, so there's ropes hanging down from it. So it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's the first time I think I've heard anyone using an effectively 3-dimensional map, something like that, where you're actually going up high on the thing instead of it's. I mean, I've seen people make these little sort of 3-dimensional dungeon type things, but it's neat seeing that. Yeah.
Yeah, they were like descending into an underground pyramid or something like that. So.
I'll tell you one thing that I did. Once was and it's something that I kind of adopted from a friend whose game I played in. Was I drew this map. This was again for a D&D type thing, but I drew out this map of this terrain. We were doing it kind of hex crawl style, that I wanted to set up kind of, okay, here's what's generally in these areas. And I already established sort of what's where, and I had everything on the map. Then I drew a second map that was like about 100 years old and was more of an in-game map. So this was the map that the players had. And so I gave them and so it didn't have everything be the same. It obviously didn't have the secret stuff, but then also some of the terrain had changed. It had been a century.
Yeah.
So there was a swamp that was much bigger, and some of the area had gotten overgrown where previously there were clearings and civilizations, and newer settlements had cropped up, and so they would tell me where they were, which squares they were going to on the map, and I would tell them what they'd find, and that was a lot of fun. I kind of wish we'd gotten to finish that campaign because there was a lot more stuff coming, but they ran into effectively a wall of gnolls along the south end, and we. And pretty much after a last knockdown drag-out fight, our schedules shifted sadly, so we couldn't finish that.
Paintball games.
I know. All the
I suck at maps. As a GM, I am terrible. You'll be lucky if I print out like an oversized one from the book. Like that's the best I can do. I kind of rely on players like, if you want a map to this dungeon, you can draw it out on here said paper, and like with a big smile.
Well, that's something always they used to do, right? You had one player who was designated the mapper.
Yeah.
So that was.
And they'd be like, "All right, we're going back. Okay, which way was it? Left or right?" It's like, "Well, you tell me. Did you map it?" Oh, sorry. Well, you're gonna wander around in this labyrinthine dungeon until you find your way out because y'all didn't map it.
You just justify it by saying you're going old school. That's the thing.
I have a notebook of those like old maps because I used to try and draw them from the group, and they are atrocious.
Yeah, like I love doing that. It's like because I did the same thing as the player. Then I go look at the GM map after we're done with the adventure. I'm like, yeah, your map looks nothing like mine.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. My actual drawing skills are terrible. They're not great. So, with the for the maps that I drew out all that time ago, it was all just very simple sort of lines, and I had to kind of explain what was the forest and what wasn't and all that. But I do like it when they have things that you can, if you're gonna use, say like a battle type scenario, or if you basically just want to show the layout. If you have it already in the product, then I think that is useful. And one thing I will say is a sort of minor anecdote that I found. It's not even a full anecdote, but something that I found a lot of fun was in a Deadlands game. To circle back to Deadlands, because I can't stop myself. In a Deadlands game that I ran at one point, then there is a fight on a train where you have you're on the train and trying to protect it, and then there are a couple folks come up in steam wagons up next to the train to rob it, and they leap onto the train to try to fight you because they're kind of like ninjas as they're leaping on. And so I had I printed out like the train. Which it came in sections, and there were squares on the train, and I had these little the little carts the Steam carts or the Steam wagons that I also had printed out because Deadlands released a lot of mini type stuff, especially even before it became Savage Worlds. But I laid those things out, and then anytime anyone jumped from one thing to another, like from a steam wagon to the train, they had to make a roll to be able to succeed. So if they failed the roll, I would grab their mini, I would set it down at a specific place where it was, and then I would just go as I pulled it quickly off the edge of the table because the train was continuing to roll forward, and they were getting left behind. So that was something that I took great delight in doing.
Cool.
It was very silly.
Yeah, I did a similar stolen from Deadlands in a strange, recursion where they're in Wild Wild West. It was like, all right, so you're in a Western setting, you're on a train with a Gatling gun, and a bunch of zombies are attacking. So fun. So yeah, that was why oh, it's the Weird West, not the Wild West. So sorry, you didn't know that.
Totally is out there. I believe it. And indeed, I promise I will stop bringing up Deadlands after this next thing. But it's just I found a link and I'm diving for it. Something that we hinted on, we haven't talked about a lot, is I mentioned cards as one of the props they had, and I always thought it was very cool and flavorful because there's a character type in there called hucksters, who they're supposed to have their own deck of cards, a deck of 52 cards, 54 with the jokers, because part of their mechanics for casting their spells is they play poker with a demon, essentially to get the power to be able to do it, and so I think that was the start of my interest in having.
It never goes well.
It never does. No, never. But that was also
the demons.
Yeah. Well, that was also why I ended up, and I should have brought some out because I keep forgetting we have cameras. I should have brought out some of my flavored decks of cards because I have a slight problem. I have way too many decks of cards now. Since they started printing out different kinds of cards, decks of cards, I've had to get so many.
Is this part of your Dark Secrets game?
It's part of my Dark Secret. But I appreciate those a lot. In addition to having those flavored for specific games, especially for different Savage Worlds type games I had because a lot of different genres. But then of course you have the games that produce their own, like the Cypher system. Where they have things that I just sit here usually with the NPC deck, even for non-Cypher games. I always have this in front of me because just constantly because I need to come up with names and things all the time. So I think it's very good to have those.
The GM incursion deck's also very good for that. Going, all right, I need okay, here's a GM incursion going on. So that's always a good deck to have. To me, the best prop for Cypher is always that XP deck. That XP deck is such a good, here's the carrot. It's such a good, and I'm going to intrude situation. So, and it always, the players having the cards, seeing you physically, pulling them out, sort of all right, what's going to happen? It adds a little excitement, a little tension, a little what have you to the game. So I really enjoyed that, and it's a very good prop and a very good mechanic in that regard. So if you don't play Cypher with an XP deck, I highly recommend you give it a try. So
my players always say I get this smile and this gleam in my eye, and they know when I'm gonna pull out the cards. And I use them now for any game I play. I take the Cypher system Numenera rules with me. They are in my D&D games when I play at home because there's nothing better than waving something like that.
Well, and it's a funny thing because D&D has their own 5e has its own mechanic of inspiration. And I'm like I said, I'm running a Tomb game, and my players are like, you haven't given inspiration 2 sessions. I'm like, oops, I forget that's the thing. It's but having a same type of mechanic of me being able to intrude like that, I think it's a lot easier than inspiration.
Oh yeah,
more active than passive.
He says game
Oh,
currency.
you did well in roleplay. I'm glad you roleplayed your character how he's supposed to. Here's the inspiration.
Well, that's
You
the
know?
thing. It's nice to have those little things that you can hold out as just sort of like this physical example. And I mean, it's something that I've used I for me the idea of that kind of started more with Fate, as when I first heard of it. Where the idea being that, okay, I would like to compel your aspect to, and so here is a fate point, which a lot of folks represent as poker chips, a lot of folks represent as glass counters or whatever, but that's the thing is sort of acted. They can either accept it or not, and it's the same thing with GM intrusions. Is like, do you want this shiny XP, which is always neat, and I found even since they can, you can retrofit that to or retrofit. I don't know if it's the timeline may not bear out my usage of that word. However, you can fit it to the other games with such in-game currency, like Savage Worlds and such, where it's like
the bennies.
If you want to give out a benny for like they're playing their curious hindrance, it's like, hey, there's something weird going on over there. Do you want to check it out? Are you a little curious? Holding up a benny for them.
When I play Savage Worlds, it's more like, hey, by the way, GM, I'm curious, and that's why I'm doing this thing over here. That's causing problems for our party. Can I have some bennies? Come on, I need some more bennies because I know that monster's really, really hard.
I will admit, I tell players to do that to me because I tend to forget sometimes. So I definitely have them for like Savage Worlds, for if I'm running Fate, or if I'm running Numenera or another Cypher system game. A lot of times I kind of, and this is getting into sort of more meta rules type things, sort of house rules, but I will sometimes even suggest to them, okay, just let me know if you are effectively if you would like to do something to screw things up. If you would like a GM intrusion, just ask. If you want a free XP, just let me know, and I'll do something to you right then and there.
Well, that's the funny thing of role playing is like I always normally play characters that will do things that are to the character that are advantageous to the party. All right, I like to play characters that have a descriptor that is, oh, he's greedy, or oh, he, like something that's the negative descriptor kind of thing. Because I like sort of playing that up, and it doesn't really work in all groups though. Like I have players at my table that are like, they're tactical. They're like, they want to do everything the optimal way. And I'm about to start a new game where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be playing that way, so I hope this works out. So.
Do you want to know one time we didn't have a prop where I wish we did? When we had that little blow up with the bacon, and it would have been really cool to pass some bacon around.
I'm curious now.
Some bacon.
What is this bacon thing of which you speak?
We were playing a game that Mark Porter's running called Furry Road.
Furry Road.
Oh my goodness!
And we ran into a bunch of hogs on shoppers. So as in motorcycles, they were like, it was a biker gang of pigs. And Danny's character, the trash panda, went to town with the Gatling gun and started just making bacon. The guy was chucking grenades as a little mouse, but or trying to.
So just let me ask: was Mark using like actual bacon for as?
No. He's saying we wish you had it.
Because at the end, because you realize at the end of that you would have no bacon. That's kind of how that would work, right?
Well, bacon was flying from the sky. It was raining heavenly bacon on us. Yeah. It was undercooked, but it was still bacon.
Oh man, that's delightful. That actually does remind me. There is a. We once also back in LARPland we did have thoughts about using consumable point-based things. Because again, for Vampire you had blood points. We were thinking about getting a box of red Tic Tacs, and just getting boxes of red Tic Tacs, give them out to players, and like, to use a blood point, consume the Tic Tac.
But then you just have people that eat them, idly, and then they're like, "Oh, I got 2 hit points left."
That's a problem. Oh,
But everybody has fresh breath.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
fair. And incidentally, there is a game that has it baked into the rules that the currency is candy, and that is Quags, the quick ass game system. And it's generally more often used for comedies than anything else. But they have this this currency called Yum Yums, and the idea is you bribe the GM with them. So you have these candies, and that's the thing is you have a certain number of them, and if you eat them, then you no longer have that number of Yum Yums. It's there in the rules. If you eat your candy, you no longer have those points.
I'm not gonna lie. I've made Oaken's fried potatoes for a Dragonlance game before, and also Nudatari's cookies. They in the last home leaves it in the last home. It's like a whole Dragonlance book has all these recipes, like
Yes, it does. I remember that.
books, and they're good.
Ooh, that sounds neat. Yeah, and actually, and again, this doesn't necessarily refer to in-game stuff, but it is cool when folks will do sort of themed foods for their games. I've only heard about it. I've never actually encountered it directly. But that sounds fun.
So we provide food for our games on Thursday nights, and we've talked about that of like, all right, we're gonna have to make some Klingon, dish or whatever. We've never followed through with it, but we've always thought about doing it. We did buy some like Romulan ale or something like that. We poured around people.
I had a friend who was running Star Wars, and he had the Star Wars cookbook, one of the ones that have come out, and he was gonna start doing it at some point. But unfortunately, we didn't get the campaign going long enough for him to eventually do that. But that was it was a delightful idea.
I did make a white margarita that I sent the recipe and a picture to Sean Reynolds for to drink at Zeros.
Excellent.
Yes.
Yes. And yes, there needs to
there needs to be an Invisible Sun cookbook.
There needs to be an Invisible Sun cookbook.
that would be good. Yeah.
There was
Drink book.
Well, that was it. Like the one problem that they've got, the Wicked Keys. I just, I had to make sure that I'm getting some Wicked Keys just because, hey, you don't have to use these Invisible Suns. Like having all right, you find a key and giving it to your players is just like, all right, what does this key do? Where does it go? It could just be a D&D game, but here's this weird key. Here's this strange key. It's probably to an arcane lock somewhere. I think that's just like having physical props like that would be just really cool to be able to, get your players a little bit more invested. So
Definitely.
Absolutely. And I mean the whole idea of having those just so that it's like, okay, this is what this thing looks like, and you can, if you're role playing in character, you can gesticulate with the thing, and folks get a much better idea of what it is that you're actually doing, and so it's always neat to see that happening. I think we are getting pretty close to the hour here. But,
briefly on music. And
yes,
I want to hear your thoughts on that because music to me has always been a mixed bag. I want to do it. It seems more of a hassle to get it to work right, to get it to like loop correctly, that it just sort of, it's either too soft where it's not a non-entity or too loud where it's a problem.
I've had really good luck with music. I have Alexa devices all throughout my house, and I love the Midnight Syndicate mixes. I just say, Alexa, play the Midnight Syndicate, and then, you adjust the volume, and if a song's not working, I just say skip. I don't make playlists, although it would be really easy, I think, to make, like, battle list. I know Sean, who runs the Greyhawk channel, has definitely has soundtracks for battle, soundtracks for serious scenes that he adjusts accordingly in the background.
I have another story I can tell you.
Tell it up, Jim.
Is it
like to hear?
Deadlands? Is it Wild Wild West Land?
Well, okay, so I actually have used soundtracks at the table before. We used to, for sometimes when I would run Deadlands, I would play a bunch of different Western sort of themed music. There actually are like 3 or 4 Deadlands albums out now, their ambient music. or sometimes so I would do that sometimes for some games, and the streaming games it's its own thing also, and I've sort of developed a technique for how I use music in those. But I was once running a game called Necessary Evil. This is a setting for Savage Worlds, which has the idea being that there's been an alien invasion and they killed off all the superheroes, and the only ones left to defend Earth are the supervillains. So the thing being, one of the I decided that there were some rival supervillains that they were dealing with, and I created one that was essentially a jazz musician necromancer. And he had a 5-piece band, and the music was part of the necromancy. They would play, and through his power, any music that he would play would cause the dead to be animated. They would rise up and do his bidding. So as they were coming back to their base, they heard jazz music, which I then put in. I put together a CD of various stuff that was sort of either swing, jazz, that kind of era, and I actually based the villain himself was actually kind of based somewhat on Louis Armstrong. I used some Louis Armstrong and other jazz standards, and so when they came in, now, one thing though that I need to mention prior to this is that one of the supervillains, this was their base. They had previously, some of them weren't quite right in the head, and one of them had been kidnapping people, just random civilians. One of these supervillains or one of the player characters had been kidnapping people, locking them up in a place on the base, and dressing them up as the village people. And he'd had like 3 of them. And so at a certain point, as they're coming in and they're fighting these zombies, as this jazz music is playing, this villain, and I can't remember exactly what I named the guy at this point, but the lead musician stops the music, and he tells them, and he turns to them, he smiles, and says, "Oh, by the way, I took the liberty of completing your set." And he pushes play on a boombox that they brought, and that's when I switched CDs and started playing the Village People. I started playing YMCA, and they had to fight 5 zombie village people who came out as these more powerful enemies. It was delightful. And that is my story.
Magic of role-playing.
Yes.
Where you fight the undead village people.
Yes, that was how it went. That was. But that said, I mean, it's that said. Now that I've utterly killed the mood, is there anything else anyone would like to say about this topic? Props, play aids, anything related to that before we put a pin in this one?
I love them. That's it.
Yeah, it's something I want to do a lot more of.
Me too.
So
awesome. Well, that brings us to things of interest. I don't know if you folks, and I forgot to ask ahead of time if anyone had any, but if anyone has any things of interest, then
go first, and we'll tell you after.
Would you like me to go first? And then you go? Okay. So there is a movie out. It's been out now for a little while, and about Laurel and Hardy. It's a biopic. And I did not expect it to be as good as it is. It's called Stan and Ollie. And it has, and of course I have utterly forgotten the name of one of the actors whom I normally know the name of the actor. But I will find it. John C. Reilly plays Oliver Hardy. Steve Coogan plays Stan Laurel. And obviously, for John C. Reilly, they had to put him in a bunch of makeup. But the movie was actually a lot, like I said, a lot better than I expected it to be. because I kind of figured I'd seen a lot of biopics recently that have been done kind of on the cheap. And what they do is this essentially this kind of slapdash version of these people as seen as a lens through their characters. That's very popular these days, to do that and then not really pay much attention to them as human beings. This was not that. They actually did get into their sort of their pathos, into their psychological situations, even while framing it sometimes in terms of the sort of acts that Laurel and Hardy did together. It's really good. I was amazed. I didn't realize how good a physical comedian Steve Coogan is. But this is also, that's another thing. When I see sometimes biopics where they'll do like comedians or actors, famous comedians or actors, and they'll do some of their famous acts, the timing just goes utterly wrong. For example, there was a TV movie about the Three Stooges. And anytime they did one of their famous routines, I was just looking at it and I'm like, this is totally off. It was nowhere near as funny. Because obviously they're not the originals. Now, with this, Coogan and Riley actually got it down to the point that it was funny when they actually managed it. And so that was just an amazing thing, just sort of seeing that. Also, I like that the personal stakes in that film grow over the whole thing as you realize sort of what their situations are and how they've kind of knitted themselves into these webs of their dealing with their problems, to the point that at the very end, up to the very end, I'm just sort of sitting there and I'm like, my God, is Hardy going to collapse on stage at this point? And so it was really cool, and they use in it that freaking silly little dance that, and I won't give away too much, but they use that. There's this little dance that they do that's in a movie called Way Out West. They use that a couple of points in this movie, and they used it in a way to tell a part of the story that when it comes up the second time, I found myself in tears by the end of it because of the way and what that dance meant to them. You actually get that conveyed. So it was just freaking awesome. And I think any movie that can do that, I think deserves a look. So feel free at some point, go and check out Stan and Ollie because it is really good.
Gotcha.
And did anyone else have any things of interest they wanted to throw in there?
I had one thing. It doesn't really need much of an introduction or help, but we have the one Kickstarter that Monte Game is running, the Arcana of the Ancients, and it's doing quite well. And they're around 500. They're 900 away from getting their bestiary, or 9,000 away from getting their bestiary. So, they've gotten $1,000 in this one. But the other Kickstarter that's going on right now is Critical Role's The Legends of Vox Machina animated special that they've got going on. Their animated intro for their second season is phenomenal. So I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with a full animated show that they got creative control over themselves. They've already raised $7.2 million for this. So that's crazy. Apparently, throughout the years, they've had a couple television pitches and animated pitches from various networks or what have you that they turned down. So I want to see what they get to do with this, because it can be, of course, voice acted by the players themselves.
I've never listened to Critical Role, not once.
Their animated intro to season 2 that happened like 2 months ago got me to like, all right, let me give this a shot because it's so epic. The animated intro is so awesome. And I'm like, all right, I got to give this a second shot, because I tried to give season 2 a shot when it came out, and I fell off in the first episode. But this, I put it on, podcasts. I grabbed the podcast, I listened to it at work, and I went all the way through the 50-something episodes of season 2.
Oh shit. Okay.
So I just, it's like, it's phenomenal. They do a good job. It's a good job of an RPG. So they have compelling characters and actors.
Danny, can I tell you a secret?
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen Critical Role either.
Yeah. I didn't until a month and a half ago. So.
It's not for lack of it's not for lack of wanting to. I mean I'm interested, but it's just I've got so much that I gotta plow through just on a daily basis in terms of media and other stuff that I just haven't had time. But I do get its cultural significance.
It's not something I can watch the Twitch broadcast of, because I'm like, I if I'm watching Twitch and watching somebody do something, that much is like, I'll do short campaigns that I can watch, like yours, Jim, but like something that's that long, it's like I can't commit that much to it, but that many hours to it. So, but if I can put it on a podcast and listen to it at work, then you got me there.
Yeah.
So, any other things of interest before we start heading out? All righty. Well, this has been an utter delight. We finally were able to get back together and do this. I am very pleased. This is one of those shows that I've kind of recently decided, and I haven't even told everyone this, that I only really want to do when I have everyone available at this point. I've enjoyed every episode that we've done, whether we had the full cast or not, but it's just with time and schedules being what they are, I feel like to make time for this, I really want to have the people who have been doing it and who are basically the people that I can
comfortable with,
rely on to get this show. To get this show, basically, to understand what it is and to do it. And I know this show isn't that difficult to grasp, but I just basically, to put it frankly, I love having you guys here, and I really want that to be my experience when I record it, when I stream it, and plus, I want us to have guests. I want that, but and I love having the guests on, but at the same time, this is just you only have so much time in life, and you have to decide. I'm getting to the point I've got to decide what I want to devote time to. So, if I'm doing the CypherCast, I would like to do it with you. So that said,
are you proposing to us?
Now having gone, I think I overshared there a bit. My apologies.
No. I'm like, look, I got watery eyes.
But that said, now now is the time when I turn to you folks and ask: do you have anything coming up to promote where folks can find you, Andrew?
No, I've got nothing to promote. You can find me on Twitter at my20sidedlife.com, or my20sidedlife, and my website, my20sidedlife.com, which is making a comeback very soon.
Excellent.
So I hope I've got a couple new, what was I calling it? Set pieces planned, and I want to start delving into my prep for this Android Genesis game I'm working on. So
awesome. Excellent. And Danny?
Yeah, I've been a little silent in social media lately, but you can find me on Twitter at Imperial Scum. And I guess the most active place I am is on Instagram right now, which is Drunken Geekery, where you can see my new puppy tatter sale and geeky stuff and metal concerts I go to and, all that stuff. For promotions, I am still on the Greyhawk channel every Sunday night playing Alara, an Elven Rogue with an attitude that got an oath bow from a deck of many things. Tales of Blood and Stone, Shadow the Demon Lord podcast. We are not gone. I know we haven't had an episode out in a little bit, but life has been turbulent. But we have a ton of stuff backlogged that we're going to throw at you, and it's dark, and it's definitely got an R, if not worse, rating. Check that one out. And then
You got something good from a deck of many things?
yeah, I got two. I pulled 3 cards. 3 cards in deck many things. Let me tell you what I got. I got the throne. So now my character is royalty and has a whole entire keep. I have an oath bow, and I got an honest answer to any one question from the gods.
I think I saw that episode.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I love when they draw cards. I love when they draw cards from the deck of many things in that show because everything stops. It's like the show stops and it becomes briefly an entirely different reality. The music changes and everything when you're pulling the cards. It's wonderful.
Travis's character pulled 3 and he got screwed. So I'm like, wow.
Were y'all drunk when y'all decided to pull 3? Is that what happened?
We were going to hell. My character was on her last. My character ended up dying that day. To be fair, and we ended up in the like abyss and like a hell. But it was our last. It was our last chance. We were all dying. We were gonna have a TPK in our hands. So my character had the deck and said, "Let's do it."
Excellent.
Speaking of TPK, I came this close to TPK in my Toon Party with the Frog Hemoth. It was this close. So they're all down for the count at one point in time. At the same time, the little NPC character was just plucking away at the Frog Hemoth though, but he got eaten too. So 2 NPC characters died and a player died, but
so close.
Well, as for me, I'm Jim Ryan. If you're watching this live, this is my channel. On Friday afternoons, Saturday and Sunday mornings, I play video games. I'm still doing Torment, as we mentioned earlier, on Friday afternoons. So tune in for that if you want to see me continue to careen through that, trying to go down every rabbit hole that game offers. On every other Saturday, we play the Cold Ruins of Last Life, which is a setting for Dungeon World. That is one where we are all undead. So at this point, as we speak, I am playing a Spectral Paladin who is about ready to storm Castle Oblivion. It's going to be delightful. Then on Sundays, I do one-shots of various types. Right now, in March, we have a couple more one-shots left of Life on Mars, which we're going to be starting up this Sunday. That is a GM-less game about the first manned mission to Mars. Everyone becomes a crew member, and it's a story game as we sort of progress. We talk about how the mission affects the crew and their relationships to each other. I think it's going to be very interesting.
That sounds fun. That sounds intriguing.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. We're getting into these games that I've never had a chance to play before, and I'm just like, yes, it's delightful. Right now, on Tuesdays, I am over on Off the Table on their channel, a Twitch channel, playing in their Urban Shadows campaign. They have 2 of those, 2 interconnected campaigns that they do every night. I'm in the second of the 2 every Tuesday night, and I'm in the second of the 2. It's a lot of fun. Sort of urban fantasy. That's at twitch.tv/off_the-table if you want to check that out. And on Wednesdays this month in March, I am running a Dungeon World campaign, a short campaign that I think I mentioned at the top of the show. It's I'm using a resource called 20 Dungeon Starters, and we picked the one that's called City of Pillars, and I'm currently running folks through that.
City of Pillows?
Pillars, yeah. if you're from Texas, yeah, no. City of Pillars. City of Pillars.
Pillars.
Pilars.
See, I heard pillows, and I'm like, okay, it's gonna be a very soft adventure.
Yes, very soft
Very
city.
smutty.
Full of pillows. And
lots of feathers in the air as they fight. You know?
They did discover a feather in the adventure today, strangely enough, but these things happen. So that's going on, and it's delightful. I'm kind of doing the make it up as you go approach, which you can do that with Dungeon World. It's really fun. But if you want to find me online, my handle on both Twitch and Twitter is Otherdoc. That's OTHERDOC. And as always, you can find my General Geek Rambling podcast and links to my various writing and audio projects and a schedule and sign up links for the upcoming one shots I'm running at JimYesThatJim.com. Well, our schedule is a bit weird, but and we're still always trying to figure out, but we will come back whenever we can. And that is currently how we're handling it. Congratulations. You have reached the end of yet another episode. You can email us at info@cyphercast.net. You can follow us on Twitter at CypherCastNet. We're on Twitch on the first Thursday of every month. Well, it used to be the first Thursday of every month, but now we're on Twitch whenever we're available. At Twitch. I can't do it anymore. We're at twitch.tv/otherdoc, where you can also find VODs, videos on demand of previous shows. The podcast is available on the CypherCast Network blog at cyphercast.net, as well as on iTunes and Google Play. I wish everyone out there the most awesome of gamery. Take care, fellow gamers, and we'll catch you next time on the CypherCast.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.